Hi everyone, I'm Donovan, Head Director of Training and Breeding at Cane Control.
Just go get the dog.
Hi everybody, this is Donovan, and you're watching the greatest dog show ever conceived, Canine Control TV. This week, we're going to look at 6-month-old Primo, a Cane Corso bred by the famous Zoe De Vita from Italica Terrae Kennels. At this point, Primo has had several lessons, one which you see here, which is going to place on command, which means to go into the cage and wait there until we release him, and then he gets a reward. And also he's learned already to sit and hold that position while we circle around. Took several lessons for us to get this accomplished. He was uncomfortable at first with us being behind him. This dog also had a big issue with coming when called. We're at the early stages here, and I'm explaining to the people what I'm doing. Here the dog is being taught to reject pieces of food that are dropped on the floor and to make eye contact with the trainer and then be released on a special command under this condition is okay. And then the dog is rewarded. The dog is expected to maintain his position for the entire period. We tell the dog to go to place, and he waits in the cage. Again, he'll leave the cage. I have a slight discussion. This is Joe. He's the owner's son. Ed, who is usually at the lessons, isn't there this evening. Normally I train with Barbara, Ed, and Primo. But today, Joe is filling in for Ed, for his father. So now Joe's taking his attempt at following my directions. Primo goes in the cage, gets released, and gets rewarded.
Okay.
Joe's doing a great job.
He's a good boy. He's a big boy.
Here I am now giving some tips to him.
He didn't know to get in the cage thing to some degree, but he wouldn't hold a sit position. Now he didn't understand. Come on.
That's his biggest frustration.
Come on. Alright, in the cage.
But you gotta,
You gotta
reward him though when he gets
I
in the
tell
cage.
him, when he goes in the cage, give him a
You gotta
piece.
reward him.
Give him a piece in the cage, I tell him again. In the
First you
cage.
gotta tell him sit and stay.
No, you don't have to tell him. You can tell him in the cage as a separate cue and not make him do a position.
Alright.
Because what happens is, you don't want him to necessarily have him take a position. Come on. Come on. Okay.
Okay.
That's good. That's very good.
Good.
Very good. What I want and why I'm saying that, you don't want so much restriction of his movement in the cage. You want him to kind of know that if he goes in the cage, he can turn around,
Yeah.
he can lay down. Because it's a command that eventually, right, and it's also a command that eventually you're going to leave, it's a place that you would likely leave him there for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Not like saying sit, which would make, you might only make him sit for maybe a minute.
Yeah.
Is a long time sitting. But if you say get in the cage and he's there for a half an hour, you want him to be able to say, feel like, oh, as long as I can turn around, I can get comfortable. I can, if I hear a noise, I can look.
And then, yeah.
And that's okay, that's allowable, as long as I don't exit the cage.
But Joe, when you drop it, you prefer...
I know
and
This
he
was a
doesn't- yeah, he
major
doesn't know
issue for
that.
this dog when we started. The dog was very reluctant to come when called. Here I am describing again some of the theories about how often it's best to call the dog from a position of sit, and also demonstrating how to circle around the dog to ensure that the dog is comfortable with the trainer walking around, milling about, and particularly going behind this dog who had an issue with that in the earlier lessons. And then I call the dog to me. See there, I throw food on the floor, and then when the dog makes eye contact with me, I release him to me. And I quickly pick up the food before the dog gets it off the floor. Now in this exercise now, you'll see that I tell the dog sit, and then I go out of sight very briefly, but I don't call him this time. I make him wait, and then I come back. This way, the dog does not develop the anticipation that each time I tell him to sit and walk into the hallway, he does not expect to be called, and therefore doesn't automatically begin to break the sit, causing the sit to be unreliable. The exercise ends again with the release and the reward. One of the major problems that they expressed to me that they had with Primo was that when he was out in the yard, that he would fail to come to them. It would be very difficult for them to get him back in the house. So I devised a plan on how to teach it to him. We begin this plan by first doing in the house, showing the dog a simple exercise where Joe teases the dog with a little piece of food, and he walks away into the living room from the kitchen, and I excite the dog about this, making a game of it. Upon Joe calling the dog, Primo, come, I release the dog. The dog runs down the hall, into the living room. Joe is seated on the couch in a very inviting posture, and he pays the dog with the food. After several repetitions of that in the house, we begin to take the exercise outside, where the real problem exists. They have a very difficult stairway to navigate for the dog. They have a very large yard, and their deck is a two-tiered deck with a spiraling staircase. So I decide to break it down into pieces. I have Joe, once again, just as we did in the house, show Primo the treat, run away from him, and come up and sit in a chair, which I find is more inviting for a dog in the beginning, and call the dog to him. Now the dog navigates the first deck, comes up onto the second deck, and receives the reward. Now we extend this one more time to the furthest part of the yard. The dog has to navigate the entire two tiers of the deck and then go in through the sliding glass windows and is finally reinforced in the kitchen.
When we come home and we're excited, like, oh, I'm happy to see you, Primo. His tail's wagging. He's like, dude, I'm happy to see you too. You know, not everybody and not every animal has that. A snake doesn't have that. When you come home, the snake doesn't care if you come home or not, unless, of course, you smell like a mouse. Or you have one in your pocket. Then you might act a little like, oh, I'm happy to see you. There's a good joke for a snake guy, right? Is that a mouse in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
It was weird. We came home from Virginia Beach on Sunday, right? And me and Eddie got out of the car. He went right to me, all over me. He didn't even pay attention to Eddie. It was the weirdest thing, because, you know, the both of us, even when Eddie comes home, like during the week.
Well,
like,
you probably spend more time with him.
Yeah.
And time is a direct correlation between the level of the bonding of the pack instinct. The more time you spend with the dog, let's face it, it's the same thing in divorce with children. Yeah. You become a weekend dad, the child stays at home all week with the mother. You could spend a lot of money, be the Disney dad, buy them everything in the world. Sunday night comes, they're like, I want my mom. I want my mom. Next week.
Right?
I sort of could live. You know what I'm saying? Right? It's like I sort of could live without you.
And
you know what I mean? That's why some fathers, like my editor, who is actually a parenting hero to me, okay, because he fought viciously to have 50% custody of his daughter, and it shows in his relationship with his kid. He doesn't have that, I love you, Dad, or like, I want to go home. What do you mean you want to go home? It's just your home. Not really. Not really. You know what I mean? That's a hard balance for a child to understand. I have two homes.
I spend time with him, plus I have a little bit more patience with him. And
that's it. You're a little less forceful. Ed has kind of a booming, big guy attitude.
But you would think we were gone for 2 days. It would be like me and then Eddie, right?
Yeah. And
my husband was so upset.
Yeah. Well, listen, if that progresses along those lines, Eddie better not give me any lip with this story.
I know, but no, I'm just saying. Still with Eddie still though.
You know what I'm saying? Listen, I have seen And it's not necessarily a bad treat.
With the wives, right?
Right. I prefer, a lot of people do this. Sit. They'll show me this, right? Sit. And then they'll do this. Okay. Right? And they'll let the dog get the food off the ground. I tell people it's not a good idea. I've learned this from experience. Sit. Instead, what I prefer is that the food is always coming from me. Otherwise, you'll have the dog sniffing around, searching on the floor for treats a lot. So what I do is, if I do that, I'll say sit, sit, and I'll pick up the treat. I'll make him look at me. Okay. So he's not, when I say okay, he doesn't go sniffing around. He's paying attention to me. You get that?
Yep.
Okay. So it's better. It's a good test. Sit. This is a good test of the dog. Now look what he's doing. You see him looking at me instead of the treat?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for him to look at me to tell him what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of just staring at the treat and waiting for me to say, get it. You follow me?
Yeah, well, look at you at the command.
Smart.
Huh?
He's smart.
You see how fast he is? Well, you know what? Dogs are pretty smart creatures.
Hi everybody, and thanks for watching Canine Control TV. I'd also like to say a word here about animal rescue. I'd like to thank the countless animal shelters, humane societies, and private citizens who have fostered and helped to adopt out the millions of animals that remain in our shelters today that have no permanent homes. And I'd like to take this moment also to encourage you to please consider adoption as an option for your new pet. And don't forget to subscribe to our show at youtube.com/Canine Control TV Show. Also, you can check us out at our website, caninecontroltv.com, or look us up on Facebook, Canine Control TV. Thanks a lot again for watching, and don't forget to adopt. Not Macho Productions.